children, I hope you have gone through my previous video, and today we will continue further with the chapter solid state. Today we will study about adaptations in leaf to perform photosynthesis. Now the leaves change themselves in various ways. First among that is large surface area. They have a large surface area so that they can absorb maximum light. Narrowing of leaves in certain plants is seen, that is for reducing the amount of transpiration and to conserve water. This is in case of oleander and pine. But most of the leaves, they try to have a maximum surface area so that more light can come onto it and they can perform more photosynthesis. Leaf arrangement. Leaves, if you will notice, are arranged at right angles to the light source so that they can get maximum light. So they are at right angles to the sun. Cuticle and upper epidermis, they are transparent to allow the sunlight to enter freely up to all the cells containing chlorophyll. Then they have numerous stomata. More the number of stomata, more will be exchange of gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, and more photosynthesis will take place. Thinness of leaf, thin leaves. If the leaves are thin, it will reduce the distance between the cells and will facilitate rapid transport of the food produced as well as the water and carbon dioxide. So it will increase the rate of transpiration. Chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are the organelles in which photosynthesis takes place. So they are concentrated on the upper layer of the leaf so that they can get maximum sunlight. Extensive vein system. This is for rapid transport to and from the mesophyll cells. What is transported to the mesophyll cells? Water. And what is transported from the food that is produced? That is taken to the other parts of the plant. So in this way, these are the ways in which leaves adapt themselves for photosynthesis. If you look at the end products of photosynthesis and their fate, there are three end products of photosynthesis: glucose, water and oxygen. Glucose is used by the plant in four different ways. First is it is immediately consumed by the plant cells. Second, it is stored in the form of insoluble starch. Third, it is converted into sucrose. And fourth, it is used in synthesizing fats and proteins, etc. See, food is manufactured in the leaf, but it is required by all the plants, all the parts of the plant. And glucose is formed in leaf very rapidly during photosynthesis, but it cannot be transported to the other parts at the same speed. So it is converted into insoluble starch for temporary storage in the leaf. At night, starch is converted back into glucose, which is then transported down to the through the phloem of the plant to other parts of plant. This is called as translocation. Okay, so the food is, first the glucose is stored in form of starch, and then during night the starch gets converted back to glucose, and then it is translocated to the other parts of the plants, and from that the plants get energy for various functions. Water produced in the process is reutilized in continuance of the process of photosynthesis. Oxygen is a third product of photosynthesis. Some oxygen may be used for the respiration by the leaf cells itself. This is called as photorespiration, but major portion of it is not required and diffuses out into the atmosphere through stomata. So that is the oxygen which we inhale for respiration. So the plants produce oxygen for us so that we can respire and be alive. Now there are certain factors which affect the process of photosynthesis. So next we will discuss the factors affecting photosynthesis. These factors are of two types: external factors and internal factors. If you look at the external factors, there are four external factors: light intensity, carbon dioxide concentration, temperature, and water content. Let us see one by one. First, we will take the two factors, light intensity and carbon dioxide concentration. They are interrelated, so we will take them together. That rate, because for photosynthesis light is necessary, so we will assume, mostly people assume that rate of photosynthesis will increase with intensity of light. So to some extent it happens, but after a certain period the rate of photosynthesis becomes stable, and if at that point carbon dioxide is increased, the photosynthesis will increase further and again get stabilized after certain period. So in this way the two factors increase. So not just the light has to increase, but the carbon dioxide concentration also has to increase for photosynthesis to take place. Now temperature, with rise in temperature, rate of photosynthesis rises. Now this rise occurs up to a maximum of 35 degrees Celsius, and the rate falls after this temperature, and by the time it reaches 40 degrees Celsius, photosynthesis completely stops. Why? Because above 40 degrees Celsius the enzymes get destroyed. So a rise of 10 degrees Celsius up to an optimum temperature of 35 degrees Celsius doubles the rate of photosynthesis. For example, if temperature is rising from 20 degree to 30 degrees Celsius, then the rate of photosynthesis will become double. Next factor is water content. Scarcity of water can reduce the rate of photosynthesis. So the water content, because water is needed for production of glucose, and the scarcity of water is due to reduced absorption from soil or due to excess of water lost in the process of transpiration. So water is a important criteria. Only 1% of water absorbed by the roots is utilized in the process of photosynthesis. Now next is the internal factors. The most important factor is chlorophyll. Without chlorophyll, photosynthesis cannot take place, and nutritional deficiencies of minerals cause loss of chlorophyll, and if there is no chlorophyll then the sunlight will not be able to be trapped and photosynthesis will not take place. Protoplasm, if it is having less amount of water, if it is dehydrated, it will reduce the rate of photosynthesis. Accumulation of sugars and starch also reduces the rate of photosynthesis. If protoplasm has excess of sugar and starch in it, then also the rate of photosynthesis will become reduced. So it is necessary for whatever glucose is being produced to be translocated. Structure of leaf, thick cuticle, distribution of stomata, size of leaf, all these influence the amount of light and carbon dioxide entering the leaf, and which in turn influences the rate of photosynthesis. Now in every period of 24 hours, plant have a change in the amount of sunlight falling on them. So the rate of photosynthesis increases from dawn is early morning, to midday, and then it decreases as the dusk is sunset time. So it decreases as the dusk approaches. Plants respire, taking in oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. In light, the effect of respiratory activities are not seen because photosynthesis is taking place, but in darkness respiration alone is taking place, so you can see the impact. At night, some desert plants and epiphytes are able to release oxygen even during the night because they perform photosynthesis. They use a different pathway for it, which is called as CAM pathway. Example of such plants are aloe vera, tulsi, neem, peepal, etc. Now let us study about some experiments on photosynthesis. Through some experiments we will study the process of photosynthesis. For any experiment to be conducted on photosynthesis, first and foremost the work that should be done is to de-starch the plant. De-starch means, D means remove. So removal of starch from the plant. Plant used for the experiments of photosynthesis is kept in dark for 24 to 48 hours. This will remove all the starch from the plant, and now whatever new starch will be produced, that will be produced under experimental conditions. So a plant from whose leaves starch has been removed is called as de-starched plant. You can test whether the de-starching has been done or not by testing a leaf for starch. The test is called as iodine test, in which what you can do is dip the leaf in boiling water for a minute. This will kill the cells of the plant. Boil the leaf in methylated spirit over a water bath. Don't boil it directly because then it can catch fire. You take leaf in the test tube. Here you see leaf in the test tube containing methylated spirit, and put it in a beaker containing boiling water till the leaf becomes pale white. Leaf is green in color till it becomes pale white. This will ensure that all the chlorophyll has been removed and the leaf will now become hard and brittle. Place it in hot water to soften it. So when you will place it in hot water, it will become soft. Spread the leaf in a dish and pour iodine on it. If starch is present, the leaf will become blue-black in color, but if it is absent, the leaf will become brown in color. So in this way you can test and see whether the de-starching has been done or not. So before every experiment of photosynthesis, we first de-starch the plant and test a leaf of the plant to confirm that it has been de-starched. Now let us see the experiment. Experiment to show chlorophyll. First experiment is to show that chlorophyll is necessary for photosynthesis. Take a plant with variegated leaves. Variegated leaves means leaf having two different colors, green color and some other color. Okay, non-green color. So example of such plants is coleus, geranium, croton, etc. De-starch the leaf by keeping the plant in a dark room for few days. I told you 24 hours to 48 hours. Then place the plant in the sun. After few hours, pluck one leaf, make its outline on paper and mark the green and non-green areas for starch. Only green plants of leaf will turn bluish in color, showing the presence of starch. Okay, this blue color portion is showing the presence of starch, and you see this blue color is seen only where original leaf was green in color. Next experiment is to show that sunlight is necessary for photosynthesis. Now in this, what you do, you take a plant with de-starched leaves, cover one of the leaf with black paper. Black paper will not allow sunlight to penetrate through it, and on that black paper you can cut a design. Place the plant in sun. After few hours, the leaf which is covered by black paper, you remove it and test it for the presence of starch by the same test, iodine test, that I told you earlier. It will be seen that only the parts of leaf which could get light through the cut design, this part, will turn blue-black. The part which was under the black paper will be brown in color. Okay, and those parts which were uncovered by black paper, they will also be blue black, showing the presence of starch. So those regions which are blue black, they all contain starch, and the region which is showing brown color, it does not contain starch. So this shows that sunlight is necessary for photosynthesis, because brown color is seen only in the area which was covered with black paper, which could not get sunlight. Next experiment is to show that carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis. Now in this, take a plant with destarched leaf, insert one of its leaf through a split cork. See here, one leaf through a split cork is inserted in a conical flask containing potassium hydroxide. Now what potassium hydroxide does it? It absorbs carbon dioxide. So inside the conical flask there is no carbon dioxide. Leave the plant in sunlight. After few hours, test the plant for starch. The part of leaf which was exposed to the atmospheric air, half of it was outside, half was inside. This half will turn blue black, but the half which was inside the conical flask will not show blue black color. This shows that without carbon dioxide, glucose will not be produced. Same experiment can be modified by half of leaf is inside, half of leaf outside, but in the other experiment you can put the whole leaf inside and test another leaf which was outside for the starch. Okay, you can put this whole leaf inside the conical flask, and then you take two leaves and test them for starch. You will find the one which was inside the flask will not turn blue black, the one which was outside will turn blue black. Next experiment is to show that oxygen is produced during photosynthesis. Now in this you will have to take some aquatic plant like Elodea or Hydrilla in a beaker containing water and cover it with a funnel. See here, there is a short stem funnel with which you have covered it. Invert a test tube on it full of water over the stem of the funnel, because beaker is also containing water. Okay, place the apparatus in the sun. In sunlight you have placed the apparatus. For few hours, bubbles of gas will collect in the test tube. You can test the gas in test tube by putting a glowing splinter into which will burst into flame. That shows that the gas present is oxygen, since it's helping in combustion or burning. Now next we come to the importance of the process of photosynthesis. So like I've already told you, photosynthesis is important because it provides food not just to the plants but also to all animals including humans. Every living organism depends on plant for food. Okay, a herbivore consumes plants while carnivore consumes herbivore. So the whole of food chain is dependent on plants, and they are the primary producers of the food chain. Okay, so any food chain, if you see, the producers are plants. Non-green plants such as fungi and bacteria obtain nourishment from decaying organic matter in their environment. This organic matter comes from dead animals and plants, which in their own turn were dependent on photosynthesis. So life itself is dependent on this process of photosynthesis. Second is provides oxygen. Oxygen is also life supporting gas which is present in the atmosphere, and it is produced only in the process of photosynthesis. So without it, neither the plants nor animals can survive. Next we come to carbon cycle. Carbon cycle is a series of chemical reactions in which carbon as a chemical is removed from air, used by living organisms in their body process, and is finally returned to the air. So essential steps of carbon cycle is carbon, which is 0.03% in air. It is taken up by green plants, see over here, for the process of photosynthesis. Producers take it for photosynthesis. From producers it goes to consumers, and from consumers the decomposers also feed on these. So in this way the food chain, and then decomposers, they decompose it, and again it goes back into the environment. So food chain. Through food chain, food containing carbon and carbohydrates and other products passes from plants to animals, which are consumer, and carbon is an essential element of all body tissues of plants as well as animals. The next is respiration. All plants and animals respire by oxidizing carbohydrates in their cell to produce energy in the form of ATP, and they give out carbon dioxide into the environment. So all producers, consumers, decomposers, all of them are respiring and releasing carbon dioxide back to the air. Decomposers, they are the dead remains of plants and animals are consumed by bacteria and fungi, which are called as decomposers. And in this process they break down the organic matter and release carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. Combustion is the process of burning. When fuel such as wood or fossil fuel like coal, petroleum or natural gas is burnt, carbon contained in it is oxidized to carbon dioxide, which is given back into atmosphere. Heating limestone. A certain amount of carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere by burning of limestone in lime kilns. So in this way, see, the plants and animals, they are taking, actually it is the plants which are taking carbon dioxide from atmosphere, giving it to animals, decomposers, and these organisms through respiration are releasing it back into the atmosphere. So the cycle is formed. Their activities like burning of fossil fuels, heating of limestone, or also releasing combustion is also causing release of carbon dioxide back to the atmosphere. So in this way carbon cycle is getting completed. Now this completes this chapter, and I want you to study it properly and do all the questions given behind the chapter in your exercise notebooks.